I really like the term that Dr. Gilbert used, I've never heard it before, catastrophic confusion. And it's so apt because a big part of what I do with my clients is helping them make sense of experiences. The world is very, very confusing for them, and this leads to high rates of anxiety. So one very simple intervention that I do with clients is the emotion words intervention. So across the top, we have different categories of emotions, as you can see, and then different intensity. And one of the reasons why I like the intensity side is because if you ask someone how they're feeling, they're 100% angry or 100% anxious, and in giving them a little bit of variety in their emotional expression is very helpful. I gave this to a client who came to my office. She was having a panic attack. She was really, really overwhelmed. You could see it in her body language. She was clenching, she was rocking. She was able to speak, though. And I said to her, "How are you feeling?" She said, "I don't know." And I gave her this page. She circled 3 different emotions in 3 different categories and immediately relaxed. Because half of her anxiety was that she didn't know what she was feeling, and she didn't know why. And by having words to anchor her experiences, it allowed her to make sense of what she was experiencing, and then she could have some vocabulary around it, and then we could talk about it. And it really allowed her to understand herself and the experience better. So, very simple tool. I also use something called personality traits. Again, this is really simple. I just printed off the internet. A lot of the people I work with have a difficult time reading character and judging people. And as we know, people on the spectrum are at high risk for getting taken advantage of, for being manipulated and being abused. And part of that, I believe, is they have an archetype in their head. So this concept. So for instance, they may think that their boyfriend or their partner is nice, kind, and loving, and because of that, they might miss some very obvious signs of them being manipulative, evil, and controlling, because they don't know where to put that information. It doesn't fit into the word boyfriend or partner. So what I do is I give them some words to describe different subtle aspects of the person's character, and we go through it looking at positive and negative personality traits, and that way they can identify, okay, what might it look like if someone is being manipulative or difficult or controlling, and what is that behavior like? And it opens discussion, so then when they go out in the world, they're able to recognize some of these traits in other people and protect themselves from not getting involved in unsafe situations. Processing. You wouldn't believe how many people come in and they just want to talk about their week. I'm surprised people pay money for this, but I actually see the value. It's because they want to make sense of what's happened to them. And by talking about it, they put it in order and in a sequence. So there's a beginning, middle, and end, and they can tuck it away and process it. A lot of people on the spectrum struggle with open-endedness and the lack of closure. So talking things through, reflecting on what they're going through and what the other people might have been thinking is very helpful for them to make sense of experiences. And literally, I'd say about 5 or 6 of my clients just come in to process. Another way to process that I encourage people to do on their own is writing it out. Some people find it very effective to just sit down and write out everything that's on their mind. Usually looks like someone threw up on a page, but in the end, it's a way to then find common themes and common experiences, or you can encourage them to try to process things with a loved one or another trusted adult in their life. Scripts is another way to make sense of experiences. This isn't referring to social scripts, which I'll touch on later. This is more the idea that when someone is about to encounter a novel or new situation that you can anticipate might be stressful, or perhaps it's a social dynamic, it's scripts that they can say to themselves to help themselves calm down. So we'd probably think of this as self-talk. But this can be really, really helpful. When doing scripts, I always start out with like a validation statement. So you want to acknowledge that, yes, you are about to experience some level of hardship. So one of my clients really likes the, even though I know this is really difficult for me, or even though this is hard, I'm going to do it anyway because I really want to X, Y, Z. So by creating these new forms of scripts or languages, it gives them something to focus on instead of their anxious rumination thoughts that are going through their head. Dr. Gilberg also mentioned about chronic fatigue. And most of the girls and women, especially the women that I see, come in talking about feeling extremely drained all the time. And I think this is about being bombarded by the sensory world, the social world, not knowing what's expected of them. But part of it is about taking on too much. And the taking on too much piece, I think, can be tied back to what I discussed earlier, this feeling that they're not good enough. So if you're never good enough, you always have to do more in order to feel like you might be good enough, right? Getting that kind of validation. The other piece is that they may have a hard time seeing boundaries or setting their own boundaries. So I don't know how many people here have heard of the spoon theory. Can I see okay. So this is being borrowed. Spoon theory was created by Christine Miserandino. She is a blogger and writer about chronic pain and invisible disability. And a lot of my clients really connect with this writer. What she says is that every day you wake up and you have a set amount of energy. So thinking of energy as a limited resource, not an endless resource. And throughout the day, you have to think of, how do I want to spend my energy today? If I'm going to go on the subway and I'm going to be surrounded by lots of people and lots of sounds and loud noises and I'm going to be all squished, that's going to take up a few spoons. And then I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. So it's a way for a person, a tangible, concrete way to think of energy and then plan your day or your week according to how much energy you feel you might have and which tasks might drain energy and which tasks might boost energy. So for instance, in thinking of social, you want to think of what people make me feel good, make me feel alive, and give me energy, and what people are really toxic and I can't handle their energy and I need to stay away from a little bit. Or in terms of daily routines around time. How can I make sure that I'm setting routines that include self-care and exercise, that I'm taking care of myself? In terms of sensory, setting parameters around that. So there's certain sensory triggers that I can't avoid throughout my day. So what can I do to reduce their impact? So we have the subway in Toronto, and a lot of my clients will put on noise-canceling headphones or earplugs or listen to music, and they'll bury their face in a book as a way to block out the world. And these are strategies that I help them do to set parameters so their energy is not drained during those periods. It's also important to set parameters on information. So some people on the spectrum, if they participated as listening over these 2 days, would probably have a meltdown when they go home tonight because it's just too much to take in, too much information to sort, and it might be hard for them to know, do I need to memorize this? Is this really important? Or can I forget about this? Because prioritizing information can be challenging. I want to give an example around setting parameters. A woman I work with, she was traveling 1 hour to work each day, which is actually not that uncommon in Toronto for that kind of commute time. She was driving, and she loved her job and was really zoned in on her job. But what would happen is throughout the day, she would forget to eat, she would forget to drink, and then she would work for many hours after the workday had been finished because she couldn't shift off her work. And this was creating a safety situation because there were times when she tried to go home to get in the car to drive and she just collapsed. She really couldn't take it. So what we did is we set parameters around her time and her schedule. So one being that, okay, you need to eat during the day. So we need to make sure that you pack a lunch the night before. And if you're going to pack a lunch the night before, they need to go grocery shopping. So when you're going to go grocery shopping, think of the times when the supermarket are the least busy so that it's not too crowded or too loud. So you do all that preparation, and how about during the day when you're at work? You drive to work, maybe you can listen to some soothing music so you can be relaxed, and throughout the day, set alerts in your phone for when it's time to eat and when it's time to drink. Because of her interoception difficulties, she wasn't able to pick up on those cues naturally on her own. And then at the end of the day, setting an alert a half an hour towards the end of the day, and at the time she was supposed to leave, and have someone check in. So all those things together, she was able to function much better and not burn herself out. But it's very important to set up those parameters in place so she can have a more balanced day.